founders won't get the industry growth program funding. About 1 in 12 do. Today, I'm talking with business advisor Vlado Baban to unpack what successful applicants do. So, Vlado, first of all, tell us a little about who you are.
Yes, Ben, thank you. I appreciate your time. I am one of a large group of business advisors, and we all work inside the industry growth program. So we're very excited about it. It's been around for about a year and a half. I myself have been doing these kind of programs for about 20 years. It seems like a long time when you say it out loud, but I've been working with mature businesses and with startups in programs that require them to, actively participate in elements of the program that requires them to develop new products, execute new strategies, grow into new markets, and to release new products. So I myself have been doing that for quite a long time, and the program has been very good to be able to support that.
That's great. So the thing that everyone wants is the money at the end, but let's talk about the first step. So people apply to the program. What do they get with you?
Yeah, there is actually quite a little bit of mystery to the two elements of the program still. When I engage with clients, this is my experience, Ben. I can't speak for the program, but from my experience is they do want generally to be looking at securing grants. And what I need to tell them is that I'm a precursor to a grant application. They then look at me rather, you know, uh, sometimes perplexed. And I explain the advisory service is the precursor to a grant application inside the IGP. So what we have here is two parts of the program. One is where you work with me for 12 months and I provide early stage commercialization advice. I'm essentially a river guide, Ben, for them during their early development process around products and services and solutions. And we work together for 12 months. And when I have finished doing a large amount of data discovery work with the client, and I've written a pretty good report, I'd like to think, then they're eligible, if they choose to then go back into the program and apply for grant funding.
So you are the gatekeeper to the money. Do I need to go through the whole 12 months first in order to be invited to the program?
Super important question. No, you just need to get through the advisory service with me that relates to the report development part. Now, if I write that report in 60 days with a bit of back and forth with that client, data discovery, understanding their issues, developing a really tight, strong 20, 30-page report, which is really powerful and very valuable. If I do that in 60 days, on the 61st day of their work with me, they can go and apply for the grant. And I've still got 10 more months in which I can support them as an advisor.
Okay, that's good to know. So how do we get to you with the first step? So how do we qualify to get into the program?
Yeah, yep. Many of my clients have accidentally sometimes clicked the grant application and then they've realized, oh no, that looks like a lot of work. And then they've realized they haven't clicked into the right part of the program. So the part of the program that I'm attached to is called the advisory service. They click into that on the business.gov.au website. Search for IGP advisory services, find the link, apply. I would like to think that takes about an hour, and then it's only a short 5 to 10 days where they're approved. But the question that you're probably going to ask me next, if I can preempt it, is what does a successful application look like to get into my part of the program?
That would be exactly what I want to. And how many get through that? And what is the type of company that does not get through?
Yeah. Look, these are really good, tough, appropriate questions. Thank you. I'm going to use my own experience because obviously the metadata that I'm using is my own, having been in these kind of programs for 20 years, but having been in this program for 6 months. Generally speaking, there needs to be a degree of inventiveness, novelty. There needs to be technical risk. There needs to be commercial risk. So there needs to be an element of unknown in the development of your product, service, or solution. Stuff that you, Ben, as an R&D specialist understand. So I'd say a lot of your clients would be eligible, and as a result, they would normally get through the advisory application part, provided that they could prove that what they were doing had a degree of new to market, new to industry relevance to it.
Okay. Okay. So most will get through that stage. So what everyone wants to know is once you're in the program, we've hit the 61st day, you like them, you're going to say, yep, go ahead with the application. What does that ideal applicant look like in your eyes?
Mm, okay. Yeah. Look, from my perspective, if I was to look at the attributes and the characteristics of a successful IGP grant applicant who didn't just submit a grant but succeeded in securing grant funding, I would say that they are uh, no more than TRL 7 in their technology readiness levels. So they certainly haven't achieved commercialization. So they are still pre-commercialization. They would still be at an
Just on
advanced.
that, what is your definition of a TRL 7 in simple terms?
Yeah, yep. So a TRL 7 is an organization that would have conceptualized and validated and tested a product and would be at the beginning or in the middle of some pilot testing with some early customers. But that would be the most advanced level at which I believe you should be submitting an application for a grant. You shouldn't be trying to submit an application after that, because I feel you're much closer to commercialization. And the program, in my opinion, might go, well, they've made it.
So you don't want someone that's already selling, I've got version 1 out there and I go, you know what, I want to go and do version 2. That's basically excluded.
Ben, that's me. I certainly wouldn't suggest that this is the formal edict coming from the program, but my experience has been that I'll always say to a client, we really need to be in the sweet spot here between a TRL 3 where you've proven the concept and a kind of a TRL 6 or 7 where you're validating and piloting with an early customer. That, to me, that's my sweet spot when I work with a client and suggest they should submit an application.
So I guess you want some sort of technical demonstration, but you also want the market evidence as well that people want to pay for this or want to use it.
Yeah, I think you would have probably got product market fit. You would have got that early stage data on product market fit by the time you'd got to TRL 5, because by then you'll have probably produced a beta version and put it in the hands of a few customers and said, tell me what you think before you go back and then redevelop it probably for a pilot rollout.
Okay. So what then is the ideal project? Describe that for me.
Hmm. Look, the reality is, I might flip that and say there really is no ideal project. There's just really an ideal level of innovation and ingenuity and unknown and technical risk and commercial uncertainty and market potential. There's those things, I think, that make up the ideal application. If you can demonstrate all those things around inventiveness, novelty, new to market, risk around development, risk around commercialization, a number of unknowns, but you've managed them, but you've got data to say that you've managed those risks. That to me is the ideal applicant for a grant.
I used to say that the government is very risk adverse, and a previous program called Accelerating Commercialization was all about technical risk. But I wanted my clients to have basically zero business or market risk, in that as soon as that project is complete, it's going to sell. It's not about we have to go and educate the market or do a marketing campaign or sales campaign. Which is that's still the case, do you think?
I think we're a little different now. I think the appetite's here for not just development of technically innovative products, services, and solutions, but I believe the appetite with the IGP program is there to say we actually understand that you need to re-educate the market around this product. We actually understand that there probably isn't any price conditioning in the market, and you'll need to develop a value position in the market, create awareness around that value position, create a price point around that, and then convince them to buy it. The government, I believe now, in my opinion, Ben, feels more comfortable around that's okay if you've still got to do that when you get to market.
So in my project, the eligible expenditure, can I include some marketing or sales, or what sort of elements can I use there?
Yeah, I would say that I'm probably not really well versed in those things. And we've got a really fantastic team at head office in Melbourne and Canberra. And we've got a hotline and we've got a bunch of people that can answer those questions. I know some people much closer to those very specific questions would answer them for me or any client that gets into the program. So I think you can apply for those kind of things, but generally speaking, it's got to be proven that it's being used to support the very unique technical commercial elements of that product. It's not just because it's marketing, 101 business as usual.
Yeah, okay. So clients often come to me and say, how much money can I go for?
Mm.
And they say, well, how much can I get? And I said, well, what do you want to achieve? How do you sort of help them define a project?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Ben. So the website clearly explains how much money they can go for, right? There's two types of grants. There's the early stage commercialization grant, and then there's the more advanced, larger scale deployment scaling grants that we also have in the program. But realistically, the way I define your question is I say you need to demonstrate a time window. And I always say to clients, let's look at a 2 year window. Let's look at the costs involved over those 2 years. And then let's look at developing a financial model that will show the government that you can co-fund your spend across that 2 year period. The reason I go for a 2 year span is because most of my clients aren't going to be releasing something in 90 days. They've got a long cycle to what they're doing.
And then, so at the end of that 2 years, what does the company look like for that product? Is it ready to go to market?
Yeah, absolutely. That company will have surpassed, more likely than not, the TRL 9, which is the commercialization phase. And they probably would have entered MRL, the market readiness levels of 1 to 5, where they entered the market. They're creating awareness around the new offering, and they're starting to convert customers, and they're starting to get some traction. That's probably where they would end up in many cases after they've finished that 2 year cycle with the program.
Okay. Now, the other question I'll ask is about the applicant. So I've often said for the older programs is that two guys in a dorm room starting Facebook, even though it was going to be Facebook, would not get funded because they're just an idea.
Mm.
Whereas a company making $1 million in revenue and exporting to 10 countries is more likely to get funded. Where do you think that applicant would sit?
Mm. Look, I think generally speaking, I think they sit somewhere in the middle. You know, I don't think they're going to be somebody that has demonstrated full product release, market traction, positive revenue, profitability. They probably won't have achieved that. But I also think that the program's less likely to fund two people in a dorm room who've just achieved a TRL 3 proof of concept and are looking to scale, but are still sort of in their pajamas. You know what I mean?
So, what about the model? I used to tell people, don't go for this program, accelerating commercialization, if it's your first product. Bring out your second product because that way you've got a financial advisor, you've got a marketing team, you've got the
Mm,
pipeline to the customer, you know the customer intimately. Would
yep.
that still help or hinder?
Oh, gee, I'm really glad I had my wheat bix this morning, Ben, with you. Um, hmm, I'm kind of scratching my beard because I don't think I know the answer to that realistically. My take has been, how about this? I can only tell you what I can see. What I can see out of 27, 26 clients that I have on the books at the moment as part of my work in the program, in my laptop, I would say most of them, this is their first product. So there's probably my data point on that one.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I'll now speak to my data points, and I've seen who gets funded for what programs, and I
Yeah,
guess across many other grant programs,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's not the most deserving,
Mm,
it's the least risky because the
okay.
government doesn't want to give money to companies and then have them collapse in 6 months' time. They want to give the money to Atlassian and go, look at what we've done. We've created this great, company. Here's
Yeah,
Canva.
sure.
We've helped them. So I think
Understand.
that's obviously not to that scale, but I think they want low risk.
Yep.
So having traction while not in the product, it may be a second product or a service or something like that, is going to go a long way.
Hey, I will respect your enormous amount of knowledge and the metadata set that you have on this. So yeah, that's very plausible what you're saying.
Vlado, that's been awesome. Thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thanks, Ben.